Austin is a very diverse city these days. The whole Central Texas area is. But what you may not know is that a lot of people came here unexpectedly, perhaps unwillingly. And we, people of faith, can do something about helping them settle in to our area, helping this become home for them. Stay with us for Austin Faith Dialogue as we talk today about refugee services.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
We're glad you joined us for Austin Faith Dialogue today, and welcome to our 1999 season. Today we're talking about refugee resettlement here in the Austin area. We have three guests, but two of them with us first. We have Dita Dowdy, who's on the staff of Austin Metropolitan Ministries in refugee resettlement, and Joe Robertson, all the way from New York City, where you work with Church World Service.
Right.
It's good to have both of you.
Thank you.
And let me not assume as we start that people necessarily know the scope of the need, the history of people of faith being involved in refugee resettlement. So Joe, how about you set the stage for us and just talk about this whole issue of welcoming the stranger?
The United States has had a long history of welcoming people who are fleeing persecution. In fact, many of our ancestors came to this land for that very reason. Since World War II, the U.S. has admitted about 100,000, 150,000 refugees a year. This year, they're going to admit 80,000 refugees. And they're people that come from Bosnia, former Yugoslavia, from Vietnam, the former Soviet Union, and 18 countries in Africa. So there are many, many reasons these people are leaving. It's because of war in their homeland. It's because governments don't respect their human rights. It's because they're persecuted because of their religious beliefs.
And why are the churches responding? There are lots of social service agencies out there, but why people of faith?
People of faith, I think, are motivated by the scriptures which call upon us to welcome the stranger, and that Jesus taught us that God's love is boundless. It's not limited to the city limits of the town that you live in, but it reaches all around the world.
Talk a little bit about what you specifically do, since Church World Service is a large organization. What do you have responsibility for?
Church World Service receives refugee cases from the U.S. government. All refugees that come into this country are screened by the U.S. government. They're interviewed overseas, and then it's determined that they meet the criteria of being a refugee, persecuted, fleeing warfare, whatever the reasons are. So each week in New York, the Department of State sits down with the voluntary agencies that resettle, about 10 of them, and distribute the cases to those agencies. My role in that is to be in contact with the Austin Metropolitan Ministries and work with them on placing refugees within the city of Austin and the surrounding area.
And now some people might be wondering about terminology. Perhaps it would be helpful to be clear about who is a refugee, who is an immigrant, and perhaps there are other categories of people who come here too.
There's a lot of confusion about that. We hear refugees, immigrants, undocumented, and sometimes politically that's all thrown together as one big mix, but it really isn't. The refugee program is the smallest program that involves immigration in the U.S. government. And like I said, it will be about 80,000 people this year. And they are people who meet the definition defined by the United Nations of who a refugee is, as opposed to an immigrant who may come here for economic reasons, who may come here because of family ties. Refugees are people not necessarily that have chosen to come to the United States. There is no place for them to go. There is no home to go back to. They're in countries that may not want them, and the United States and the churches within this country say that we'll welcome you, we'll take care of you, we'll get your lives started again so that you can be productive citizens.
Now, before we talk specifically about what we're doing in the Austin area, I'm struck when you talk about statistics. The numbers of people that the United States accepts versus the millions, I understand, who are uprooted around the world. It seems to me, as someone not involved in refugee ministry, that we're really doing very little as a country. How do we stack up?
There are about 15 million refugees around the world, we think. We don't have really good statistics. And the United Nations tries three things to do. First is to fix it so the refugees can go back home. That is the number one and best solution. Make the country livable again, welcoming, because people are more comfortable where they grew up with their own culture. The second option is to see if the country that the refugees are currently in, like Somalis go to Kenya, see if Kenya can take those refugees and absorb them, or maybe Bosnians who go to Germany, see if Germany will accept them. The third solution is third country resettlement, and only a small number are accepted for resettlement around the world. While the U.S. Numbers seem fairly large in who they resettle compared to other countries, really our percentage of the pie overall is not that great.
Because we're at the third stage by then, third
Right.
country resettlement.
Right.
Okay, so you do your work, you get information about a particular case, a particular individual, particular family, and then what happens? Because we end up getting people in Austin, so how does that
Right,
happen?
and they don't just say, I want to go to Austin, I've heard it's a nice place, you know. So what happens is that we send our cases that we receive, we get a biodata sheet, we send them out to the church denominations which participate in church world service, such as the United Methodists, Southern Baptists, Presbyterians, and there are about 9 denominations that resettle through church world service. The denominations actually contact the local affiliate then and say that we have a case from Bosnia. Would you get a Presbyterian church to help resettle this family and work with this family? So the key is to try to match up a local church with the refugee family. Church world service is actually a ministry of those denominations who are a part of it. So all cases are assigned to a denomination who then works with the affiliate to develop local support for that case.
Which is then where your work, Dita, comes in. You get word from Joe's office about a case, and what's the first thing you do then?
Well, first thing is that we try to get some church involved in this process, because it's very important to have that social support or that spiritual support from local churches or local community. Before that, we can't just go in any church and ask, but before that we try to go to churches, set up special meetings, do some orientation, let them know about refugee resettlement, what that means, how it's going to be their involvement, what they should expect from us, what they should expect from refugees, and in the end, what kind of experience that they're going to have. So
first you have to create awareness, I guess. And as you've been doing that these last several months, what are you finding in the churches? That there's great excitement, that there's reluctance, that people are very informed about refugee issues or very ignorant? What's happening out here?
Well, I do get positive response wherever I go, because I think the most important thing is the way how you approach churches, and or maybe the right person to call and make that first initial contact. And then it's just, I think that everybody has heart for this. You just have to show them ways how they, of their involvement in this. And after that, it's not that difficult, because they get guidance from us, from staff. We kind of coordinate about case management and this, so church is not left alone to do whatever it takes to be done. They kind of go through us through that whole process.
So it's not saying yes and then they're on their own.
No.
Okay.
And it's teamwork, as I call. Now, are you accepting this process to be part of our team? not that I'm putting task on them. I just want them to join me and my other coworkers in this.
What do you find are some of the characteristics of a congregation, a synagogue, a faith group that is successful in refugee resettlement? I would imagine, for instance, it might be a large group with a lot of financial resources, and we see some pictures of the actual work, and we'll get into descriptions here in a bit. But what are the characteristics of a group that's successful?
Well, over the years, I do have few churches that kept doing this because many people got involved and they just found themselves drawn in this. They say like, oh, this is so fulfilling that we see that we are making difference locally. We're not just watching news and it's out there, but we are doing here something and we see that we are making difference. So over the years, we have few churches that did many times, or we this past year in '98, we had one church that officially sponsored 3 families, and unofficially they helped us out with another family. So we just need to spread the word and just let people know how they can get involved in this.
I think what you see too is that all size congregations are involved. Not only the large ones, the ones that seem to have the financial resources, but smaller ones who go out and do fundraisers to earn money to help pay for the family's initial costs. So we see a wide variety. I think what it takes is people who really have a heart for hands-on mission work and doing the work of God and getting their hands dirty.
And let me make sure, since you won't be in the second half of the show, Joe, is there anything else you wanted to particularly let viewers know about refugee ministry?
I think with refugee ministry, you're reaching out and helping people whose lives were stopped and interrupted through no fault of their own. It wasn't something they did that got them in this situation. They're victims of circumstances which they can't control. And we're here to give them the tools to start again, to pick up and move on with their lives.
And a lot of the statistics we're looking at show that.
Right.
What was it about refugee ministry that really attracted you, since there's all kinds of places you could have invested yourself?
I got into refugee ministry by accident. I was a youth minister in a local church, and my senior minister decided we were going to resettle refugees, and it was going to be part of my job description, which was strange. And the refugees that we resettled were 3 single guys from Poland. They lived across the street from me. And I was just taken by the fact that they saw America through eyes that it was a wonderful place, a giving place, a Christian place. Everything that we wanted people to think about America, that's how they viewed it.
So it's that personal connection,
Right.
obviously, that really makes a difference.
Right.
Okay. Well, we're going to stop. We always have a break partway through Austin Faith Dialogue. We'll come back for some more conversation with you, Dita. And Joe, thanks so much for your help and for the work that you do. And we want to make sure that you stay with us for the second half, when we'll have one more brand new guest and continue the conversation about this important ministry of resettling strangers in our midst. Stay with us. Joe? We're glad you're here for the second half of Austin Faith Dialogue when we're talking about refugee resettlement. But before I forget, if you want your announcement mentioned here on Austin Faith Dialogue during the show's break, be sure to send it to Austin Metropolitan Ministries several weeks in advance of the event, and we'll see if we can put it on the show. Now, as we continue talking about refugee ministry, we've got two people who are on the staff of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. Dita, we've met you as the refugee work coordinator, and David Davis, the Associate Director of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. So welcome, David. It's good to have both of you. And let me turn to David first, just to talk a little bit about AMM's organizational commitment. Because my understanding is that refugee work, even though it's been going on in the country for a number of years, is actually a new ministry for AMM.
It is a new ministry for AMM. Refugee work was happening in Austin prior to AMM's involvement. We've been associated with the program for about 6 months now, but it's a good fit. With AMM, we're a network of churches and faith-based organizations, and that's really what resettlement needs. It's that one-on-one connection. It's that social connection, spiritual connection that comes through a community, and that's what we hope to be able to offer refugees.
And I wonder if you think, as a staff person of AMM, if there's some particular skill connection, something that AMM can uniquely offer to refugee work that perhaps wasn't being offered in the Austin area before.
Well, I think the relationship to congregations is probably our key unique piece to this. There is a way to resettle with an agency-based model, using caseworkers and mobilizing resources in that way. But through AMM, we're able to access volunteers, folks that are doing this really out of the goodness of their heart, or doing it out of a commitment to welcome the stranger, doing it out of a commitment to meet human needs in a real way.
And when AMM set up this new ministry a few months ago, did the organization look at this as say a 5-year project, or something that we will do until somebody else picks up on it? How is it conceived in relating to what else AMM is doing?
Oh, I believe this is a long-term fit. This is an opportunity for the faith community to make a contribution to a global need. Dita had said it earlier about acting locally, making a difference here that really has worldwide implications. So refugee resettlement and Austin Metropolitan Ministries are here to stay.
Mm-hmm. Actually, sort of a natural fit.
Oh, it certainly is, when you add the issues of religious diversity and beliefs and so forth. It's a wonderful fit, and so many people are fleeing religious persecution as well.
Now, Dita, the actual work through AMM is just a few months old. Have we resettled anybody yet? And if so, can you describe what that case was like? Or are we still at the creation of the ministry stage?
Oh, yeah. Last year we resettled over 100 people, and we just had this family that arrived before Thanksgiving, and I just found myself again going through that to explain them what Thanksgiving is and what exactly takes place. And this, in that case, we didn't have church to be with us, so that means that they didn't have that support of maybe being invited to somebody else's house for Thanksgiving dinner or something. So because of that, we need churches to get involved in this, because it's a big difference when we do just the agency-based resettlement, and is quite different when we have church.
What is that difference?
Because it's a big difference. It's just that from that first moment, we all get together to go to the airport. Before that, we talk about getting, maybe preparing this welcome basket, preparing meal, going for grocery shopping, stacking up for at least a week of food, and then arranging housing, putting furniture, and it's just like mothers or parents going and fixing up their children's dormitory rooms or something like that. So yeah, I think that that's very rewarding for anyone who gets involved in that. And it's different when we have maybe somebody from the church, from the congregation invites the family for picnic or for some dinner. When we have maybe ladies that are pregnant, everybody gets so excited. They prepare a baby shower, and this Sunday we do have one. So it's going to be big affair. Everybody's invited. So.
And you keep saying family, so then the typical refugee resettlement case is a family
We
then, right?
mainly have families, but off and on we do come across single people. But the most important thing is that we need to have churches involved in this and go through this process together.
And the process involves what? Training and what else?
Yes, training, financial support, preparing housing, like furniture, setting up housing, maybe sometimes, and finding housing too. And then it comes just that social support to be there for them. Show them how to use bus system, take them to places, maybe just show them where park is, or have them for some kind of social activity at the church or to somebody else's home for dinner, as I said, or just be there for them. Maybe help out with some English tutoring, or just take them maybe to the bank, help them out to open a bank account, show them few things that we kind of think that everybody should know. But when you don't speak that language, it's not that easy. And through the staff, every church get that support that we show them, or we train them how to approach different cultures. Because you can't approach in same way people from former Yugoslavia and maybe people from South Asia or Africa. So it's kind of interesting way, for
cross-cultural learning on both
yes,
sides.
it's cross-cultural orientation for all of us.
And David, say a little bit about AMM's institutional commitment, because I hear that there are staff people who will work with the faith groups during the process, but what specifically does AMM do?
We have 3 staff people associated with the program. Dita, who coordinates work with congregations and involving them in this work and managing the casework. We have a person that manages employment and finds opportunities for employment for refugees. And we have a person who manages our match grant program, who does casework and helps churches document the kinds of work that they have done. Because in that documentation, we're able to access some federal monies that will offset some of the costs.
Good, so there is financial help. Congregations should know that then.
Right.
Okay.
But the program is very expensive. It's an important need. But when you think about starting from ground zero and building a life in a new place, there are costs. And depending on the family size, we're usually looking at about $2,000 to $3,000 of commitment to set up the household and to pay for a few months' rent while employment is sought and so forth.
And you talked about employment, so then evidently not knowing English is not really a barrier to refugees, not in the long run.
Well, it's often a barrier, and it's a big barrier to living wage level jobs. And so you can't underestimate the need for ESL programming. But the people that come want to work. The people that come really do want to establish themselves here, and so there are jobs, and budgets are tight, obviously, but the commitment is there, and that the churches through this program are able to help people launch themselves. It's very rewarding.
I can see that. And Dita, my guess is your personal story is a story of somebody reaching out to you, because you're not native to Texas or the Austin area. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about your background and how that drew you into refugee work.
Well, I call myself Kosovare. I'm from Kosovo. I'm Albanian from Kosovo. And I got here in July of '92. I immigrated, but I was told that I should leave my country in 24 hours along with my husband, because he's, as an American citizen, he was working with Doctors of the World group based in New York, doing vaccination of children, and that wasn't that agreeable with Yugoslav government, so they just invited us at police station, and they took from my husband his passport for a week. And finally, when they called us in and they gave him a passport, they just said, you should leave in 24 hours. So in one way, I'm refugee. So I kind of feel for all these people, and here I am doing this for all these years. And I just hope that with my work, I can get more people involved and make a little difference locally.
I think so, as we look at the pictures of other people who have been and still are strangers in our midst. David, is there one last thing, we've got a few seconds left, that you want to make sure that churches and congregations hear about getting involved?
I would like for them to hear that there are numerous ways to participate in the program. Church sponsorship is probably the biggest way and makes the greatest difference. The commitment of financial resources is certainly needed and wonderful, but that human touch and that social network that a church can provide is very important. We also have a volunteer program that can incorporate people outside of a religious body into work through tutoring ESL or assisting in different ways, transporting to appointments. There's numerous ways that our staff are prepared to plug people in to real concrete tasks that need to be done. And there are ways for smaller churches to come together with other smaller churches who might not have the financial resources, but they could jointly, in cooperative effort, sponsor a family. So we'll be flexible and work with congregations where they are.
Great, and I hope you do get a lot of calls. Obviously, it's important for all of us to help the stranger in our midst. Thank you, Dita, and thank you so much, David. Thank you for joining us on Austin Faith Dialogue. We'll see you again next week right here on KNVA.